Hello students, Miss Slyman here. This time I'm going to make a video about using Excel to group our data and then make a histogram, because we need to make histograms for continuous data, and a lot of you will have continuous data. So again, anytime we have data that's measured, that's going to be continuous data, and it's unlikely to be exactly the same. So when we graph it, we don't want separate columns. We want our bars all to touch. So here we've got 20 heights of students, and they range from 154.4 is our minimum value. So I'm just going to go in and highlight that one. So there's our minimum value. And then 176.2 is our maximum value. So we want to make sure whatever class intervals we make are going to cover those. So we want our smallest one to be around 154.4 or smaller. And then we're going to make our biggest one bigger than 176. So we ended up with 176.5. So the way that I got these intervals is I said, okay, I would like to have 5 intervals. And so I took my calculator and I said 172, sorry, what was my maximum? 176. 176.2, and then I subtracted the 154.4. So that gave me my total range of numbers, and then I divided that by 5. And that gave me 4.36. 4.36 is a really awkward number to count by. So I decided to start at 154 and then add 4.5 every time. So I'll add 4.5. And that gave me my first interval. So from 154 to 158.5. So that's what I did here. And then I just kept adding 4.5. And now if I push enter, I get my next one, 158.5 to 163. If I keep pushing enter, I just keep getting the same, adding 4.5 every time. And so I see my 5th one is bigger than my maximum, which is good. So since we have continuous data, our bars need to touch. So exactly where one interval ends, the next one needs to start. That's really important with continuous data. So where, I'm just going to go in and put a note in here. So where one interval ends, the next one starts. And that's with continuous data. Okay. So in this grouping, I want to include 154, but I don't want to include 158. 158.5. I'm going to include the 158.5 down here. So in this group, I want to include 154, exclude 158.5. So one way I can write that is with inequalities. H is my height. So I could say heights H, and then that's in centimeters. I don't know why I ended up low there. Heights in centimeters. Another way I can do it is to use a bracket, a square bracket, to include, a parenthesis to exclude. So that's what I did going down. And then of course with just this small amount of data, we can count it ourselves. But for those of you who have big data sets, of course we want Excel to count it for us. So in this spreadsheet here, I have put in all my height data, and I just copied and pasted my values over here. Remember, so you don't end up with anything weird, sometimes you need to make sure that these cells are formatted as text, because if they're formatted as number or general, you might end up with it turning it into dates, because Excel always tries to make numbers. So just like we did in Google Spreadsheets, I'm going to use the count ifs feature. So I want an equation or I want a function, and I want count ifs. And same idea, I take my range. So I want to look at all of this data. So click and hold the shift to select it all. So there's all my data. And then I want greater than or equal to 154. That same data, so I'm going to copy that same data. I also want to be less than 158.5. And notice this time I don't have less than or equal to because I'm going to have the equal to in the next group. So I'm going to hit enter and I get 3 just like I got before. I'm going to come in, copy this whole formula, hit enter to get out of that cell. I'm going to paste it, but now I want to go greater than or equal to 158.5, less than 163. Repeat, greater than or equal to 163, less than 167.5, 167.5, 7.5 to 172, and then 172 to 176.5. And there's all my values. Now I want to graph these because they're continuous. I want to make them into a column graph with columns touching or a histogram. So I'm going to come into charts here. I'm going to pick column. I can say clustered column. So notice they're all spread out. I'm going to click on a data point and then double click. Gap width, I want 0% gap between my bars. I want all my bars to touch. And this one I could call, I could call this one heights of students. And then my blue is my frequencies. I could put in centimeters also. So there we go. I'm going to copy that. Let's see if this works to come over and paste it in my document. And it works, and there I have my graph with my bars touching.